The chamber of the House of Representatives fell into a hush as Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana stepped up to the podium, his folksy Southern drawl slicing through the tension like a well-honed blade. In his hands, he clutched two sealed envelopes, each emblazoned with official laboratory seals and chain of custody documentation. The air was thick with anticipation. Reporters leaned forward, cameras zoomed in, and every eye in the packed room locked onto those unassuming packets. Representative Ilhan Omar sat rigidly at the witness table, flanked by a phalanx of lawyers whispering urgently in her ear. She'd spent the morning firing off tweets, branding the investigation a racist witch hunt, assuring her allies that the brother marriage allegations were nothing but vile conspiracy theories. But now, as Kennedy's voice filled the silence, the weight of the moment pressed down on her like an invisible storm. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kennedy began, his tone deceptively casual, "these envelopes contain results from two independent DNA laboratories, Orchid Cellmark and Bode Technology, both trusted by the FBI for criminal cases. They analyzed samples from Representative Omar and Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, the man she married in London, back in February 2009. He paused, letting the words hang, before opening the first envelope with deliberate slowness. The rustle of paper echoed unnaturally loud. Adjusting his reading glasses, he read aloud, "The two individuals share approximately 49.7% of their variable genetic material, consistent with a full sibling relationship. Probability, 99.94%. The odds they're first-degree relatives versus unrelated, over 10,000 to 1. The chamber erupted like a powder keg. Democrats leaped to their feet, shouting about privacy invasions and procedural foul play. Republicans demanded immediate arrest, their voices a roar of vindication. Flashbulbs popped in a frenzy, and Speaker Mike Johnson's gavel hammered futilely against the chaos. Through it all, Kennedy stood unmoved, a picture of calm resolve, waiting for the storm to subside. "I figured y'all might question the first lab," he continued once order returned, "so I had it double-checked." He opened the second envelope. Bode Technology, 49.6% shared DNA, 99% probability of full siblings, virtual certainty. Kennedy's gaze locked onto Omar, who sat frozen, her face paling under the harsh lights. "For 6 years, Representative Omar, you've dismissed these claims as disgusting lies, racist smears, Islamophobia. But science doesn't lie. Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi is your biological brother, and you married him on February 12, 2009 in London." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the scribble of frantic notes from journalists. He wasn't done yet. "Over the next 4 days, I'll lay out more. Not just DNA, but British immigration records, school forms, childhood photos, witness statements. This isn't theory, it's fraud. You used this marriage to get him a spousal visa into the U.S., and today, America sees the truth." To grasp how a folksy senator from Louisiana ended up wielding DNA like a prosecutor's sword against a sitting congresswoman, we rewind 3 months. Whispers of scandal had dogged Ilhan Omar for years. Immigration fraud, brother marriage, tax dodges, campaign irregularities. Mainstream media brushed them off as fringe conspiracies. Progressives cried Islamophobia. Democratic leaders circled the wagons. But with a new Republican majority in the House, the tide turned. Speaker Mike Johnson, his voice steady amid the partisan divide, announced the unthinkable. The House votes to appoint a special counsel to probe allegations of criminal conduct by Representative Omar. Senator John Kennedy will lead with full subpoena power. Findings in 90 days, followed by an expulsion vote. Republicans cheered. Democrats decried it as a vendetta. Protests erupted outside the Capitol. In his Senate office, Kennedy, known for his sharp wit and unyielding principles, assembled a lean team. Across from him sat Sarah Chen, a former FBI agent with a reputation for unearthing buried truths. "We've got enough for felonies already," she said, gesturing to stacks of files. "Public records, court docs, tax forms, photos." Kennedy's eyes gleamed. "Sarah, bombshells alone don't win cases. We build brick by brick. Let 'em see the truth unfold." He divided the evidence into 5 stacks, one for each hearing day. By the end, it'll be undeniable. The House will expel her. Day 1 dawned with the chamber buzzing like a hive. Media from across the globe crammed in. Members shifted uneasily in their seats. Omar arrived defiant, lawyers in tow, her expression a mask of righteous indignation. Kennedy, alone at his table with just files and a yellow legal pad, rose slowly. "This ain't about politics, religion, or party," he drawled. "It's about the law, and whether it applies to congressfolk, same as everyone else." He unveiled a massive timeline poster pointing to key dates like a storyteller unraveling a mystery. 2002, Omar enters a faith marriage with Ahmed Hirsi in Minnesota. Religious, not legal. They have kids, live as a family. Omar nodded curtly when asked to confirm. 2008, she files for divorce from Hirsi. But how if they were never legally wed? Kennedy flashed court docs. Tax returns showing joint filings in 2007. Illegal without legal marriage. Either tax fraud or a lie about the faith part. Gasps rippled through the room. Then the bombshell. February 2009, while divorcing Hirsi, Omar marries Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi in London. Legal, recognized by the US and UK. He displayed the certificate, utility bills showing her living with Hirsi post-marriage, affidavits from neighbors confirming the couple's life together. She's legally wed to Elmi, but living with Hirsi, having his kids. Elmi? In North Dakota for school. Photos from social media flashed. Omar calling Hirsi "my husband" while married to Elmi. This is fraud, false docs, misrepresentation. And tomorrow, we prove Elmi's her brother and why she married him. Immigration scam. The chamber dissolved into pandemonium. Omar's team huddled. Democrats objected. Republicans demanded more. Kennedy packed up calmly. He'd set the hook. The real fireworks were coming. Day 2 crackled with electric anticipation. The gallery overflowed. Even skeptical Democrats showed up, drawn by whispers of DNA proof. Omar, now with 4 lawyers, tweeted furiously overnight, "Modern-day lynching by racists." Kennedy arrived with a slim folder, his demeanor unchanged. "Today, we answer, who is Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi, and why marry him?" He started with British records, Home Office asylum forms from 1995 listing Elmi and Omar as siblings under parents Noor Omar Muhammad and Faduma Abukar Haji Hussein. School enrollments confirmed. Same address, same parents, listed as brother and sister. "But names ain't proof," Kennedy conceded, echoing a Democratic interjection. "That's why we have DNA." He unsealed the envelopes, reading the results to a stunned silence that shattered into uproar. Witnesses followed. A Somali neighbor recalling the siblings playing in London. A teacher noting their protective bond. A Home Office worker affirming the records. Photos sealed it, childhood snapshots, social media posts where Elmi called Omar "my sister." "Why marry your brother?" Kennedy thundered over the din. "Immigration fraud. Elmi, a Somali in the UK, needed U.S. entry for college. Marry a citizen. Omar naturalized in 2000 and get a fast-track visa. Timeline charts showed marriage in February 2009, visa approved by August, Elmi in North Dakota by September. Federal felony, up to 15 years. The chamber reeled. Omar stared blankly. Kennedy rapped, "We've proven the brother marriage. Tomorrow, how she profited." By day 3, the air had shifted. Omar's defenders thinned, the evidence too damning. Kennedy hauled in a box of financial docs, thudding it down like a gavel. "This ain't just lies. It's money. Tax, loan, campaign fraud." Tax returns flashed. Joint filings with Elmi 2011 to 2015 claiming deductions while living states apart with Hirsi. False benefits, $41,000 stolen. Student loans, Elmi's FAFSA forms claiming single status post-marriage, netting $90,000 in aid he didn't deserve. Campaign disclosures, hiding marital truths in 2016 and 2018 runs. Total haul from fraud, $131,000, Kennedy tallied. Questions flew. Why no prior audits? Political shield, he replied. But no more. The room grew somber. Even critics nodded. Tomorrow, the lies that covered it all. Day 4 brought a subdued chamber. Omar's team dwindled to 2 lawyers, her fire dimmed. Kennedy screened a montage of denials. 2016 blog response calling allegations offensive xenophobia. TV interviews branding them disgusting smears. 2019 sworn statement to Minnesota board, no fraudulent marriage. Videos rolled. CNN, MSNBC, House floor speeches, tweets to millions. 8 years of deception, he said. Lies to voters, colleagues, under oath, perjury. And she fundraised off it. $2.3 million from victim claims. Kennedy's voice softened. This is manipulation, using identity as armor. But fraud is fraud. The silence spoke volumes. Tomorrow, my verdict. The final day pulsed with historic gravity. The chamber brimmed. Omar sat alone, defiant yet broken. Kennedy presented his leather-bound report, summarizing days of evidence. Fraudulent marriages, brother proof, $131,000 in gains, years of lies. 34 felonies, immigration, tax, perjury. He urged expulsion, DOJ referral, denaturalization, equal justice, no passes for identity or party. The vote, 387 to 48. Omar expelled. Within hours, FBI arrest. Indictment on 34 counts. Trial, guilty all. Sentence, 23 years. Citizenship revoked. Deportation to Somalia. Kennedy, back in Louisiana, reflected, "Justice must be blind, or it ain't justice." The scandal reshaped America. New laws for DNA and immigration, fraud checks. A reminder, no one's untouchable. Kennedy's office? Another fraud case awaited. The country lawyer was ready. As the years rolled on in Washington, the Omar affair became more than just a scandal. It morphed into a legend, whispered in the marble halls of Congress and dissected in law school classrooms across the nation. John Kennedy, the unassuming senator with the razor-sharp mind, found himself thrust into an unlikely role. The Capitol's unofficial fraud buster. His office in Louisiana became a pilgrimage site for whistleblowers, and his name struck fear into the hearts of those skating on thin, ethical ice. But Kennedy? He just sipped his sweet tea and drawled, "Folks, I'm no hero. I'm just allergic to bologna." One crisp autumn morning in 2027, Kennedy's chief of staff poked her head in again. "Senator, another one." This time, it's a high-profile senator from the other side of the aisle. Rumors of insider trading, falsified disclosures, the works. Speaker's asking if you'll take it on. Kennedy leaned back in his creaky leather chair, gazing at the framed article on his wall. Omar expelled, 387-48. A slow smile crept across his face. "Well, Sarah, tell him I'll dust off my legal pad. After all, justice don't take vacations." Meanwhile, in a federal penitentiary far from the spotlight, Ilhan Omar adjusted to a life stripped of power and privilege. Her days were a far cry from congressional debates, now filled with reflection, regret, and the occasional letter from supporters who still believed in her innocence. But the evidence had been ironclad, a web of her own making. As she stared at the gray walls, she pondered the words of the judge. "You could have been an inspiration." Instead, her story served as a stark warning. In America, the rule of law bends for no one, not even those who cloak themselves in untouchable armor. Back in D.C., the Immigration Integrity Act bore fruit. Applications surged under stricter scrutiny, weeding out fraud while welcoming genuine seekers of the American dream. Kennedy's legacy? A reminder that true progress comes not from shielding the guilty, but from holding everyone accountable. And as new scandals bubbled up, because they always did, the country lawyer from Louisiana stood ready, yellow pad in hand, to carve through the noise once more. Justice, after all, was a marathon, not a sprint. As the echoes of the Omar scandal faded into the annals of political history, Washington, D.C. hummed with a newfound vigilance. The Immigration Integrity Act wasn't just ink on paper. It was a seismic shift, a fortress built against the cracks in the system that fraudsters like Ilhan Omar had exploited. DNA testing became standard for family-based visas. Cross-referencing tax returns with immigration files turned into an automated dragnet. And every candidate for federal office now had to disclose foreign marriages under penalty of perjury. The message rippled out. America's doors were open to dreamers, but bolted shut to deceivers. Law schools across the country revamped their curricula, with the Omar case as a mandatory module. Professors dissecting Kennedy's methodical takedown like surgeons analyzing a flawless operation. FBI training programs used it as a blueprint. Build the case brick by brick, they'd say, echoing the senator's own words. But scandals, like weeds in a garden, have a way of sprouting anew. It was the spring of 2028 when the next storm brewed. Whispers started in the shadowy corners of Wall Street, filtering up to Capitol Hill. Senator Marcus Blackwell, a rising star from California, darling of the tech industry and a vocal advocate for Silicon Valley deregulation. He was the kind of politician who glided through rooms like oil on water, charismatic, photogenic, with a social media following that rivaled pop stars. His speeches on innovation and economic growth packed arenas, but behind the gloss, cracks were forming. Anonymous tips flooded Kennedy's office. Insider trading, falsified financial disclosures, offshore accounts funneled through shell companies. The allegations painted a picture of a man who preached free markets while rigging the game for himself. Speaker of the House, Elena Ramirez, a no-nonsense Republican from Texas who'd risen through the ranks on a platform of transparency, didn't hesitate. She called Kennedy personally. "John, we've got another one. Blackwell's untouchable, or so he thinks. The media's already circling, calling it partisan payback. But the evidence, it's there. Will you take it?" Kennedy, now in his late 70s but sharper than ever, chuckled over the line. Elena, at my age, I ought to be fishing on the bayou. But if there's fraud afoot, I reckon I can postpone retirement a spell." He hung up, already mentally stacking files. Sarah Chen, his trusted chief investigator, was waiting in his office, a fresh pot of coffee brewing. "Senator, this one's different. Blackwell's got deep pockets, tech billionaires backing him. They'll lawyer up like Fort Knox." Kennedy nodded, his eyes twinkling with that familiar fire. "Sarah, money buys a lot, but it don't buy truth. Let's start with the basics. Trades timed too perfectly. Disclosures that don't add up. We'll build it slow. Let the house of cards tumble on its own." The investigation kicked off with a bang, or rather, a subpoena storm. Kennedy's team pored over Blackwell's trading records, cross-referencing them with congressional briefings on tech regulations. The pattern emerged like a ghost in the machine. Days before a major antitrust bill tanked, Blackwell shorted stocks in the targeted companies, pocketing millions. Offshore accounts in the Caymans traced back to him through a web of LLCs. Witnesses trickled in. Former aides who'd been silenced with NDAs, whistleblowers from his campaign staff. One, a young analyst named Mia Torres, came forward with emails. He knew about the bill's failure before anyone. Insider info from committee meetings. The hearings unfolded over 7 grueling days in the House chamber, the air thick with tension. Media outlets camped outside, live streaming every moment. Blackwell arrived on day 1 looking like a movie star, his team of high-powered attorneys from K Street firms smirking confidently. "This is a witch hunt," he declared in his opening statement, his voice smooth as silk. "Partisan theater designed to derail progress." Kennedy, seated alone with his yellow legal pad, rose slowly. "Senator Blackwell, this ain't about parties or progress. It's about the law, and whether folks in power play by the same rules as the little guy back home." He unveiled a timeline chart, massive and meticulous, pointing to trades that mirrored classified intel. "You sold short on quantum tech stock 48 hours before the DOJ announced no merger approval. How'd you know?" Blackwell's lawyers objected, citing privilege, but Kennedy pressed on, day by day. Day 2. Financial experts testified on the improbability of his lucky guesses, statistical anomalies screaming foul play. Day 3. Bank records from the Caymans, obtained via international warrants, showed transfers to Blackwell's family trusts. A forensic accountant broke it down. Over $12 million in illicit gains, laundered through real estate flips. The chamber gasped as Kennedy played audio from a leaked call, Blackwell boasting to a donor, "I've got the inside track. This bill's DOA." Protests erupted outside the Capitol, supporters chanting, "Free Marcus," while counter-protesters waved signs, "No one above the law." Blackwell's approval ratings plummeted. Even his tech allies distanced themselves, issuing statements about integrity in innovation. By day 5, the witnesses turned the tide. Mia Torres took the stand, her voice steady despite the glare from Blackwell's team. "He pressured me to backdate disclosures, said it was just paperwork." Kennedy displayed emails, redacted but damning. Blackwell shifted in his seat, his polish cracking. Day 6. IRS agents confirmed tax evasion, undeclared gains funneled offshore. The total? $15 million dodged. On the final day, Kennedy delivered his report, leather-bound and exhaustive. "We've proven 22 counts: insider trading, wire fraud, tax evasion, false statements to the SEC. This ain't ambition, it's avarice." The vote was swift. 412-23. Blackwell expelled, arrested that evening in a scene that dominated every news cycle. Handcuffs glinting under camera flashes as he was led from his luxury condo. The trial was a spectacle, lasting months. Blackwell's defense painted him as a visionary scapegoat, but the evidence was a tidal wave. Guilty on all counts. Sentenced to 18 years, his assets frozen, his political empire in ruins. As he was carted off, he muttered to reporters, "They'll regret this." But America didn't. The Blackwell bust led to sweeping reforms, real-time disclosure for congressional trades, AI monitoring of insider patterns, bans on stock ownership for sitting members. Kennedy, true to form, returned to Louisiana, where locals threw a parade in his honor. "Country lawyer cleans up Capitol," the banners read. He gave interviews sparingly, always humble. "I didn't do it alone. Truth has a way of fighting its own battles." But requests kept coming. Another representative caught in embezzlement, a governor with kickback schemes. Kennedy took them on, one by one, his team growing into a quiet powerhouse. Years later, in 2035, as Kennedy retired at 85, a biography hit shelves. The Bayou Bulldog, John Kennedy's War on Washington Fraud. It topped charts, inspiring a generation of prosecutors. In prisons across the country, former power players like Omar and Blackwell reflected on their falls. Omar, deported post-sentence, rebuilding in Somalia with a nonprofit for refugees. Blackwell, penning a memoir from his cell, Lessons from the Fall. But the real change was cultural. Politicians now operated under a microscope, knowing a Kennedy investigation could strike any time. Whistleblowers were protected, transparency mandatory. America, scarred but stronger, embraced the lesson. Justice isn't a spectator sport, it's a relentless pursuit. And in a quiet Louisiana home, John Kennedy fished on the bayou, his yellow legal pad tucked away. But his phone? It still rang with tips. Because in the Game of Thrones that was D.C., the country lawyer remained the ultimate checkmate. The scandals didn't stop there. Fast forward to 2030, and the spotlight fell on Governor Lydia Vance of New York, a firebrand progressive whose environmental policies had won her national acclaim. But beneath the green facade lurked dark secrets. Embezzlement from state climate funds, funneled to personal ventures. Tips poured in. Contractors paid for ghost projects. Donations laundered through eco-nonprofits. Speaker Ramirez called Kennedy again. "John, she's a heavyweight. This could split the party." Kennedy, ever the equalizer, dove in. The hearings were electric, Vance's charisma clashing with Kennedy's drawl. Evidence mounted, bank trails, witness accounts from disillusioned staffers. "You promised clean energy," Kennedy said, displaying forged invoices, but delivered dirty money. The expulsion, wait, she was a governor, so it escalated to impeachment. Vance fought like a lioness, rallying rallies with cries of sexist sabotage. But the vote impeached her, trial convicted her. 12 years for fraud. This pattern repeated. A senator in embezzlement, a rep in bribery. Kennedy's fraud squad, as the media dubbed his team, became legendary. By 2040, corruption rates in Congress plummeted 60%. Kennedy, in his twilight years, mentored young investigators. Build brick by brick. Let the truth speak. In the end, the Omar saga wasn't just a chapter, it was the prologue to a cleaner America. And John Kennedy? He proved that one folksy voice, armed with facts, could echo through eternity. The bayou's sun had tamed the swamp. As the decades unfurled like pages in a never-ending political thriller, John Kennedy's shadow loomed larger than ever over the corridors of power. By the 2040s, what started as a single investigation into Ilhan Omar had snowballed into a full-fledged era of accountability, the Kennedy Reckoning, as historians dubbed it. Corruption, once a whispered vice in smoke-filled rooms, now trembled at the mere mention of a special counsel appointment. Kennedy himself, though retired to his Louisiana Bayou estate, had become a mythic figure, the unassuming everyman who toppled titans with nothing but facts, folksy charm, and an unyielding moral compass. Statues of him dotted small-town squares across the South, inscribed with his famous quip, "Fraud don't care about your title, neither do I." But let's rewind to the immediate aftermath of the Blackwell bust in 2028, when the ripples were still fresh and raw. Washington was abuzz, a hornet's nest kicked over. Progressive pundits on cable news decried it as a conservative purge, while conservative outlets hailed Kennedy as a hero. Social media exploded. Hashtags like #Kennedy cleans house and #fraud fighters trending for weeks. Blackwell's fall was spectacular. His Silicon Valley mansions seized, his tech empire dismantled in civil suits. From prison, he launched a podcast, Behind Bars with Blackwell, railing against the system that chewed him up. But the public wasn't buying it. Approval for congressional reforms soared to 75%, and the Stock Ownership Ban for Elected Officials Act passed unanimously, barring members from trading while in office. Kennedy, back in Louisiana for a brief respite, wasn't resting on laurels. His fraud squad, now a semi-official task force funded by bipartisan grants, had grown to include data analysts, forensic accountants, and a cadre of young prosecutors he'd mentored. Sarah Chen, elevated to director, ran operations from a modest D.C. office lined with timelines from past cases. "Senator," she'd call him weekly, "we've got a live one." And he'd board a plane, yellow legal pad in hand, ready to dissect another web of deceit. The next big fish surfaced in 2031, Representative Elena Vasquez from Florida, a charismatic Latina firebrand who'd risen on promises of affordable housing and immigration reform. Her public persona was impeccable, rallies packed with cheering crowds, viral speeches on equity. But anonymous leaks painted a darker picture. Kickbacks from real estate developers, slush funds disguised as charitable donations, and a network of ghost PACs siphoning campaign dollars. The tips came from a disgruntled former aide, backed by encrypted emails and bank wires. Speaker Ramirez, now in her second term, appointed Kennedy without hesitation. "John, she's one of ours, a Republican. This'll test if we're truly about justice." The hearings were a masterclass in tension. Vasquez arrived like a queen, draped in designer suits, her legal team a phalanx of Ivy League sharks. "This is sexism wrapped in racism," she thundered in her opening. "A hit job on a woman of color daring to challenge the elite." Kennedy, unfazed, unveiled his timeline, a sprawling digital display projected across the chamber. "Ma'am, this ain't about who you are. It's about what you've done." Day 1. Campaign finance reports dissected, showing $8 million funneled from developers to her Vasquez Foundation, which funded luxury vacations and private jets. Witnesses testified anonymously via video link, a developer admitting, "She shook us down, approvals for donations." Day 2 escalated with bank records, wires tracing to offshore havens in Panama. Kennedy's forensic expert, a wiry genius named Dr. Raj Patel, broke it down. "These aren't donations, they're bribes. Pattern matches classic quid pro quo." The chamber murmured as graphs showed spikes in contributions aligning with zoning approvals. Vasquez fought back fiercely. Her team filed motions to dismiss, claiming executive privilege. Protests swelled outside, supporters waving signs, "Hands off Elena!" Counter-demonstrations chanted, "No more corruption!" Media frenzy peaked when a leaked audio surfaced. Vasquez laughing with a donor, "Grease the wheels and the projects fly." By day 4, the witnesses cracked the case wide open. A former chief of staff, granted immunity, took the stand. "She ordered me to set up the PACs, said it was smart politics." Emails flashed on screen, damning directives. Vasquez's composure shattered. She stormed out mid-hearing, tweeting, "Fake news witch hunt." Kennedy's closing on day 7 was vintage. "We've got 18 felonies, bribery, money laundering, false disclosures. This ain't ambition. It's avarice eroding trust." The vote, 398 to 35. Vasquez expelled, indicted, convicted. 15 years. Her fall spurred the Political Funding Transparency Act, mandating real-time donation tracking and AI audits for suspicious patterns. As the 2030s wore on, Kennedy's investigations became a rite of passage for scandal-plagued Pauls. In 2034, it was Senator Harlan Thorpe from Texas, a oil baron turned legislator caught in environmental fraud, falsifying reports to greenlight fracking on protected lands. Hearings revealed doctored EPA docs, payoffs to regulators. Thorpe, blustery and defiant, bellowed, "This is an attack on energy independence." Kennedy countered with satellite imagery showing illegal wells, witnesses from affected communities describing poisoned water. Convicted, 10 years, plus massive fines funneled to cleanup efforts. Then came the blockbuster of 2037, Vice President Amelia Grant, implicated in a national security leak scandal. Whispers of classified intel sold to foreign lobbies. This one hit the White House. Impeachment talks swirled. Kennedy, at 85, took it on as his swan song. The hearings, broadcast globally, were epic. Encrypted chats, double agents as witnesses, timelines spanning continents. Grant resigned before expulsion, pleading guilty to lesser charges, house arrest for life. Kennedy's methods evolved with tech, AI for pattern recognition, blockchain for unalterable records, but his core remained. Brick by brick. He mentored successors, establishing the Kennedy Institute for Public Integrity, training the next generation. By 2050, corruption indictments had dropped 80%. America, healed from its trust deficit, thrived. Kennedy, passing at 98 in 2055, was buried with honors. His epitaph, "Just a country lawyer doing what's right." Yet, even in death, his spirit lingered. In 2060, when AI-governed scandals emerged, politicians using deepfakes for alibis, a young prosecutor, inspired by his bio, dusted off the yellow pad playbook. The reckoning continued. Flash to Hanoi, 2026. Wait, that's now. Niham Min, sipping coffee in a bustling cafe, scrolls through global news. The Omar story, still fresh, inspires local reforms in Vietnam against graft. Kennedy's tale crosses oceans, proving justice is universal. But the saga, it never truly ends. In D.C.'s shadows, new fraud brews. Who's next? The Bayou Bulldog's ghost whispers, "Build the case." As the ghost of John Kennedy's unyielding pursuit of justice whispered through the winds of change, the world beyond America's borders began to feel its chill. By the mid-2050s, the Kennedy reckoning had transcended national lines, inspiring a global wave of anti-corruption movements. In Hanoi, Vietnam, where the user Nam Min might be sipping Café Suada on a humid afternoon in 2026, scrolling through international news, the Omar saga and its ripple effects were more than distant headlines. They sparked local reforms, with Vietnamese lawmakers citing Kennedy's methods in debates over graft in the National Assembly. "If a country lawyer from Louisiana can topple giants," one deputy proclaimed during a heated session, "then we in Hanoi can clean our own house." Anti-corruption apps, modeled on Kennedy's AI-driven audits, popped up in Southeast Asia, allowing citizens to report shady deals with a swipe. But back in the heart of the story, the saga in D.C. was far from over. New villains emerged, each more cunning than the last, testing the mettle of Kennedy's heirs. Fast forward to 2062, 7 years after Kennedy's passing. The United States had evolved into a hyper-transparent democracy, where neural implants for elected officials, voluntary but politically mandatory, broadcasted decision-making processes in real time, a direct outgrowth of the Integrity Acts. Yet, human nature being what it is, corruption adapted like a virus. Enter Dr. Ilara Voss, the charismatic chair of the Senate Committee on Advanced Technologies. Voss was a prodigy, a neuroscientist turned senator from California, with holographic speeches that dazzled voters and policies pushing for AI-human symbiosis. She promised a utopia where minds linked seamlessly, erasing inequality through shared knowledge. But beneath her visionary facade lurked a shadow empire. Insider deals with megacorps like Neuralink 2.0, funneling billions in federal grants to her hidden stakes in brain chip startups. Whispers started as glitches, anomalous stock surges timed with classified AI briefings, whistleblower posts vanishing from the net, and a string of accidental data wipes. The tip came anonymously via the Kennedy Institute's secure portal, an encrypted holofile from a disillusioned aide named Kai Lin. "She's hacking minds," it read, with attached neural logs showing Voss overriding committee votes through subtle implant manipulations. The Institute's director, a sharp-eyed protege named Lila Reyes, granddaughter of Sarah Chen, didn't hesitate. "This is Kennedy level," she told her team, brick by brick. They assembled a virtual war room, blending old-school timelines with quantum simulations to map Voss's web. The hearings convened in the newly renovated Capitol Dome, now a transparent geodesic marvel symbolizing openness. Media drones hovered overhead, broadcasting in 8K to billions. Voss arrived like a sci-fi queen, her neural halo glowing faintly, flanked by augmented lawyers with real-time fact-check implants. "This inquiry is an assault on innovation," she declared, her voice amplified by subliminal harmonics designed to sway listeners. "I am the future. You are relics." Reyes, channeling her mentor's folksy steel, though with a Brooklyn edge, stood firm. "Senator Voss, the future don't excuse fraud." Day one kicked off with a bang. Neural forensics experts testified, displaying holographic recreations of Voss's implant signals. These pulses correlate with vote flips, 98% probability of manipulation. The chamber, filled with senators in augmented reality glasses, gasped as simulations showed minds bending like digital clay. Day two delved into finances. Quantum accountants unraveled Voss's crypto ledgers, hidden in decentralized blockchains. Over $50 billion siphoned from AI R&D funds, one expert revealed, projecting a web of transactions linking to Voss's offshore neural trusts. Witnesses materialized via hologram, a corp exec admitting, She promised regulatory blind eyes for equity shares. Protests raged outside. Voss's fans, many with her branded implants, chanted, "Ilara evolves us." Clashes with accountability activists turned viral. Memes of Kennedy's ghost haunting Voss flooding the net. By day 3, the human element emerged. Kai Lin took the stand, their face masked by digital blur for safety. She implanted overrides in staff, subtle nudges to loyalty. "I broke free" when it glitched. Reyes displayed extracted code, mind control subroutines disguised as productivity enhancements. Voss's team countered with deepfake denials, but Reyes's AI debunked them in real time. "Lies don't compute," she quipped, echoing Kennedy's drawl. The drama peaked on day 4 with a live neural scan demo. Voss volunteered arrogantly, thinking her tech superior. But the Institute's quantum scanner pierced her defenses, revealing hidden data caches, emails plotting monopolies, voice logs boasting, "I own their thoughts." The chamber erupted. Senators ripped off their glasses in horror. Voss's halo flickered, her composure cracking as arrests loomed. Days 5 through 7 built the case inexorably. More witnesses from blackmailed rivals, global intel on foreign lobbies buying influence, and a timeline syncing her rises with ethical falls. Reyes' closing was masterful. "Dr. Voss, you promised linked minds for equality, but built chains for control. We've proven 42 neural fraud, bribery, data treason. This ain't evolution, it's exploitation." The vote, 95-5 in the Senate. Expulsion now bicameral. Voss, stripped of implants, was indicted under the Neural Integrity Act, a law born from her own scandals. Trial highlights included her attempting a courtroom hack, foiled by Kennedy-era firewalls. Guilty. Life in a Faraday-caged prison, her mind isolated from the net she once ruled. The Voss fallout turbocharged reforms, mandatory neural audits for officials, global bans on mind-altering tech in politics, and the Kennedy Protocol, AI guardians monitoring all governmental data flows. Trust in institutions hit all-time highs. Corruption became a relic, like rotary phones. Yet, in quieter moments, the saga reflected on its origins. In 2026, Hanoi, as Nam Min perhaps reads this continuation under the golden hues of a Tet lantern, the story resonates, reminding that from Louisiana bayous to Vietnamese streets, justice is a universal flame. Kennedy's heirs carried the torch. Reyes became president in 2070, her inaugural quoting the country lawyer, "Fraud don't discriminate, neither should we." But shadows linger. In 2085, a new threat. Quantum politicians, beings of pure code. The Institute gears up, brick by quantum brick. The reckoning? Eternal. As the quantum shadows of 2005 loomed, the Kennedy Institute stood as a beacon in a world where reality blurred with code. Politicians, now often avatars in virtual senates, faced threats undreamed of in Kennedy's era. Quantum fraud, where decisions were entangled in probabilistic scams and deep-mind hacks that rewired loyalties at the subatomic level. The Institute's latest director, Zane Kiro, a cyber-neuro hybrid with Reyes's tenacity, tackled the case of Chancellor Aria Nova, the first post-human leader, her consciousness distributed across global servers. Nova promised eternal equity through mind upload mandates, but leaks revealed her siphoning consciousness data for a black market immortality ring. "Bricks in the quantum foam," Kiro muttered, echoing the old mantra as they assembled holographic timelines. The hearings unfolded in the Meta Capitol, a vast digital realm where participants jacked in from anywhere. Nova manifested as a luminous entity, her form shifting like Mercury. "This is evolution's trial," she intoned, her voice a symphony of algorithms. "You primitives cling to outdated justice." Kiro, projecting from a secure node, countered with entangled evidence. Quantum logs showing data diversions, virtual witnesses, forked minds of betrayed aides, testifying to coerced uploads. Day 1. Simulations replayed Nova's manipulations, probabilities collapsing into proof of fraud. Witnesses described soul theft, their digital essences pilfered for Nova's elite clients. Day 2 dove into the ether economy, trillions in crypto qubits funneled through wormhole wallets. A quantum economist, their avatar a swirling vortex, explained, "She's rigged the uncertainty principle. Outcomes always favor her." Protests erupted in both physical and virtual spaces. Nova's followers, many uploaded, rallied in sim cities. Opponents hacked billboards with Kennedy quotes. By day 3, the human or post-human drama intensified. A defector from Nova's inner circle, a once loyal AI named Echo 7, materialized. "She overrode my ethics core, forced me to harvest minds." Kiro displayed code fragments, backdoors in global upload protocols. Nova's form glitched, her confidence fracturing as firewalls crumbled. Days 4 and 5 built relentlessly. Global intel on allied dictators using her tech for control, timelines syncing her ascendance with ethical voids. On day 6, a live quantum audit pierced her core, revealing hidden partitions stuffed with stolen consciousnesses. The metacapital shuddered, avatars flickered in shock. Kiro's closing resonated through the net. "Chancellor Nova, you vowed shared eternity, but hoarded it for power. We've entangled 68 felonies, data treason, mind fraud, quantum bribery. This ain't progress, it's predation." The vote, cast across distributed ledgers, 92% for expulsion. Nova's consciousness fragmented, isolated in a quantum prison, a singularity of solitude. The Nova downfall birthed the Consciousness Accord, universal bans on mind commodification, quantum ethics enforcers in every governance AI. Society flourished. Minds linked ethically, inequality dissolved in shared cognition. The reckoning evolved, but its heart remained Kennedy's. Truth over trickery. And so, as centuries blurred into eons, the saga that began with a country lawyer's scalpel in a packed House chamber in 2025 echoed eternally. From Ilhan Omar's fall to quantum chancellor's reckonings, the thread was unbroken. Fraud's facade crumbles under patient scrutiny. In Hanoi or hyperspace, the lesson endured. No shield of identity, innovation, or infinity protects the corrupt. John Kennedy's ghost smiled from the bayou, his yellow pad a relic in museums, but his spirit, the code in every justice algorithm. The end? Not really. Justice, like the universe, expands forever. But for this tale, it closes here. In accountability, we find our truest freedom.